OTC, CBSC 212.
Go ahead, sir.
Step 576, biomed data is not performed.
Copy. And ask OTC.
So, Neil, we're getting into the closeout activities now?
Yeah, pretty soon you'll see, just as they're finishing up Jeff here and doing his comm checks and everything, Greg's going to be removing all of the last equipment that we use to move about the vehicle, making sure that none of it accidentally flies in space if it's not supposed to. It's things like those platforms that he's standing there that cover the windows. Those are not meant to fly, so you'll see him pick those up. There's some covers on some of the displays back there on the aft portion of the cockpit that is now, I guess, down since the shuttle's in the vertical. There are covers on the displays and things like that, so if you drop something, it doesn't damage the display. So his last responsibility before they close the door and lock it is to make sure that all of that gets pulled out. And if you're looking at in the White Room, the next time we look at the White Room, the number 6 gentleman, Jim Davis there on the right, his job is to inventory. One of his jobs as the national quality representative here is to inventory all that stuff as it's coming out, making sure that everything that has been brought into the vehicle that's not supposed to be there when it flies is brought out of the vehicle. And there's actually a lot of platforms and the rest that we use to walk around in there, so it's quite a bit of stuff.
That tape he just took off of there, was that just a protective covering?
Yeah, exactly. Since that has to make an airtight seal for the, since the hatch has to make an airtight seal against the crew module, they have to make sure that it's kept very clean. You can see that Renee Arians there is wiping it down, trying to make sure that it forms a really good seal. One of the first things they'll do after they close the hatch is do a pressure check. You'll see them insert a probe into what's literally a hole there in the door and seal it, and pump the crew module up to about 2 pounds over ambient air pressure and see if there's any leaks. You can kind of get a good idea of what quality, NASA quality reps do here. If you see Jim watching Renee, making sure that everything is done correctly, kind of just helping him out and making sure that it's all ready to go. Kind of ducking in on the right there was Mike Mangione. He's the head of the closeout crew. You can see he has the big number 1 on him. He's the one who's overseeing everything. He's on the headset with the OTC and trying to coordinate all of the activities that the closeout crew does.
OTC, MS2, com check.
MS2 OTC, copy com check. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Teresa. NTD, MS2, com check.
MS2, this MTD. I have you loud and clear. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, Steve. MS2, com check.
MS2 Houston, I read you loud and clear. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, CJ. And OTCS.
Go ahead, Ask.
The crew is ready for astrocom and air-to-ground checks.
Okay. And Ask, let me go ahead and give you step 600 here. Close out the crew module for flight per your checklist. Also go ahead.
Okay, the ask copy.
Okay, and then verify your ascent camera configurations are set up. And that's step 602.
Okay, the ascent camera configuration is verified, and we're in work on closing out the crew module.
Okay.
You can see Greg here starting to retrieve all of the covers. See the display cover he's pulling off there.
And all systems at this time, all conversations on 212.
And he'll start to pull out all of the ground equipment that we don't need to fly.
Remain silent except for emergency calls. In Atlantis, during astrocom checks, adjust appropriate volume control. For comfort, do not change audio panel switch configuration.
Atlantis copies.
In Atlantis, OTC com check, air to ground 1.
CDR, loud and clear. PLTs, loud and clear.
MS1, loud and clear.
MS2, loud and clear. MS3, loud and clear.
MS4, loud and clear.
MS5, loud and clear.
In Atlantis, going to air to ground 2, com check. And Atlantis, OTC, air to ground 2, com check.
Okay, go. Say something.
And here we get to see that the front of the cockpit looks like
MS3, loud and clear.
the new MEDS displays, a bunch of video displays as opposed to the old gauges. These are the displays that the pilot and commander look at in order to monitor the systems during ascent and entry. Greg's now disabled the cameras inside the crew module since they are not for flying. They're just to monitor the strapping process. So that's being disassembled now and being handed out. You can see them handing out various pads, panels, and platforms that we use to stand.
OTC com check, UHF.
CDR, loud and clear. ELT, loud and clear.
MS1, loud and clear.
MS2, loud and clear. MS3, loud and clear.
MS4, loud and clear.
MS5, loud and clear.
Copy, Atlantis, and we're turning to air to ground 1. Atlantis OTC on air to ground 1. CDR com checks are complete.
Copy that.
As a matter of fact, right now, you can see number 5 there, Al Schmidt, taking the camera out that we viewed all of that strap-in video on. All the associated cables and the rest. What Greg is doing now has been likened to painting yourself into a corner. Basically, you put your back to the hatch and move backwards and just start pulling the panels you're standing on one at a time and passing them out.
Configure for air to ground 1 com check.
It worked. Atlantis is ready.
Atlantis, Houston, for the CDR and PLT, com check on air to ground 1.
CDR, loud and clear. PLPs, loud and clear.
We read you loud and clear also. Configure for air to ground 2.
Roger that. Atlantis is ready.
Atlantis, Houston, for the CDR and PLT, com check on air to ground 2.
CDR, loud and clear. PLPs, loud and clear.
We read you loud and clear also. Configure for air to air.
Roger that. Atlantis is ready.
Atlantis, Houston, for the CDR and PLT, com check on air to air.
CDR, loud and clear. PLPs, loud and clear.
We read you loud and clear also. Configure for SIMO voice check.
Roger. Atlantis is ready.
Atlantis, Houston, for the entire crew, how do you hear?
CDR, loud and clear. PLP, loud and clear.
MS1, loud and clear.
MS2, loud and clear. MS3, loud and clear.
MS4, loud and clear.
MS5, loud and clear.
Atlantis, Houston, we read you all loud and clear. This completes the air-to-ground voice checks.
Roger that.
ASP OTC.
OTC, OVCC.
CC, go.
Yes, sir, I'd like to swing on over to 142 and talk to CAFM, please.
I'm sorry, say who you want to talk to?
CAFM 142.
Copy that. AFM, copy. AFM, copy. ASP OTC.
CDR, Atlantis, was that last call for the ASP?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Okay, stand by. We'll get him up.
Okay, thank you. And all personnel Houston voice checks are complete. Asked, do not open the ML86 Pyrojet System A FCM PCM circuit breaker until directed, please. We have a issue with the fuel cell that we want to resolve to make sure we have no problems.
Okay, the ALF copies. Do not open the PCM fuel cell CB, and we'll stand by on the hatch.
Copy.
OTC, OVCC, 212.
OVCC, you're low.
How's that, sir?
Much better.
All right, I would like channel for my NASA, please, to clear the TIR log.
118.
118, copy.
650, copy.
The purge on the fuel cells is wrapping up. There was very slight degradation noted on fuel cell number 3, but it does not appear to be something that's going to be an issue and concern as far as our countdown and launch attempt. So they will be.
OTC, CDR.
Go ahead, CDR.
I request permission to adjust MDU brightness and cockpit lighting.
Yes, sir, you have a go for that.
Thank you.
And they'll be wrapping up that fuel cell purge activity very shortly, and that will allow us to get into the hatch closure. So when the commander asked for permission to adjust the displays, why does he need to have a heads up for that?
Well, that's a good question. Since the med system is brand new, we're still learning a little bit about it, and one of the things we found is that the instrumentation here in Launch Control Center is sensitive enough to pick up changes in the current going through the system when the pilot moves the brightness controls, like the brightness on your television. So what we have to do, what we ask the crew to do before they move that, is to tell LCC that they did it, so they have, when they pick up this change, that they know what caused it, that it wasn't an anomaly. Kind of just a courtesy call. Same for the lighting, too.
And OTC asks.
Go ahead, Ash.
Yes, ma'am. All non-flight items are removed from the crew module. I am standing by on the fuel cell PCM circuit breaker.
I copy, and we're expecting that to be cleared here in just a few minutes. They're discussing that right now.
And the ALF copy, standing by.
The conversation was there between the ASP, which is the astronaut in there, Greg Johnson, and Teresa, the OTC, is that there's a one circuit breaker that Greg has to pull before he can leave. It's the last thing that we do before we leave the vehicle for the last time, and that involves this fuel cell purge. So Greg's going to have to stand by the circuit breaker, wait for him to complete the purge. Then he can pull the circuit breaker. It's a circuit breaker just like the one in your house. You pull it to break the to break the electrical connection, and then he can leave, and we can shut the door and get ready for the launch.
We're listening to astronaut Charlie Precourt flying a T-38 now out around the pad area and out over the ocean, and he reports some developing scattered clouds out over the ocean, but nothing of consequence.
And ASPO TC.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, sir, at this time you've got to go on ML86 Bravo for the fuel cell PCM circuit breaker. You can take that to open at this time. That's been cleared.
Okay, copy that. And are you ready for me to terminate comm between the house and the LCC?
That's affirmed, sir.
Okay, house is pulling the fuel cell PCM circuit breaker and terminating comm.
So that's it. He's finished.
That's true. Well, he's finished for right now. He's finishing the crew module. He's pulling the circuit breaker. Then he has to go and disconnect his comm equipment from the comm panel, since, again, that's his stuff. He doesn't want it to fly. Then you'll see him get out. They'll pull out the last set of panels and then shut the door. However, he stays around for a while to assist the closeout crew as they finish hatch closure and check the leaks.
And OVCC OTC.
Hey, man.
Yes, while he's egressing the crew module, you can verify you're ready for hatch closure, sir?
That is affirmative.
Okay.
This is double up. Stand by. LTC double up, we can verify.
Well, it looks like Greg is through in the crew module. He's gotten out for with that portion of his job done. And they're removing the ramp that goes from the white room into the crew module. And Greg takes over his job now, and that's to control that big yellow air line that you can see him holding there. That basically just pumps cool air, cool fresh air into the white room. The idea that why he needs to be there holding it is that the shuttle construction is kind of like a thermos. The crew module is kind of a separate vessel inside the skin of the shuttle. And the area that surrounds the crew module and the shuttle is purged with nitrogen in order to suppress fires or any other problem you might have. And that nitrogen will escape around the hatch since the hatch opens up the skin of the vehicle. So Greg is to stand there with a hose and try to keep fresh air blowing there so we don't get a buildup of nitrogen that could be hazardous for the closeout personnel. And the two mechanical techs, Renee and Al, are shutting the door now and locking it. That device you see Al kind of poking through right now is actually a mirror on the end of a long stick, and he puts it through a small hole in the door, and he uses the mirror to confirm that the door has been latched completely. And the quality inspector has to take a look here also.
CGNC OTC.
Go ahead.
You can give verify 664 for us, 2 or 3 seconds, downless data loss.
Verify.
Okay.
We're in the process of loading some launch polynomials. Neil, what does some of that mean?
Well, we in the crew use the term targets. What it is the basically the point in space that we want the computers, the navigation computers, to fly us to. The various, I guess, qualities that we want our flight path to have. The computer aims for a particular point out over the Atlantic Ocean with a flight path angle, a certain velocity. So we want to be, at a particular altitude, at a particular, going in a particular direction at a particular speed. And these targets, as we call them, are loaded into the computer just prior to launch. And what they would be doing at this point is looking at the latest positions of the space station and latest other things that might update these targets, and then downloading them into the computer to tell the shuttle computer to compute the exact path that the computer wants to fly.
OTCC, GLS on 212.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Step 694 is complete. GLS initialization complete.
Copy.
And that last activity means that the ground launch sequencer, which is the launch computer here in the firing room, is ready to support the final 9 minutes of the countdown.
Yes, ma'am. I can give you 262. Hatches closed and lights for flight.
Copy. ECL.
Copy.
Okay, that tool that you see Al Schmidt there with, it kind of looks like a pistol or a gun of some sort, is actually the pressurization hose that he's going to fit into the hatch here and pump the crew module up to about 1 pound or 2 over ambient pressure for the leak checks.
CDR, copy.
And CDR panel L2A1.
Up there, go ahead.
Cabin vent. Vent ISO switch open until vent ISO talkback open. Vent talkback
that work?
closed.
OTCC, the cabin vent ISO is open, talkback open, the cabin vent talkback is closed.
Copy.
In that last exchange, Teresa Annulus, the OTC, has been telling Jim to close the vents, the cabin vents to the outside as part of the leak checks. Normally, the shuttle crew module will release air if it gets to a higher pressure than the outside air. It's part of the safety features, but Jim will shut those valves so that we can pump the thing up over ambient pressure.
CDR, ECL.
ECL, CDR 14.9 on panel 01, cabin vent.
Okay, thank you. SMTC OTC on 212.
Yes.
Can you verify 687 at this time?
Stand by. OTC, CMTC, I can verify that stuff.
Copy.
And NASA Test Director Steve Aldemus advising the team that we're beginning the standard crew module pressurization right now.
OTC CDR, we're adjusting cabin instrument lighting again.
Copy that, CDR.
OTC CL212.
Ready, still.
They just want to let the crew know we're pressurizing, and they will get a master alarm in the klaxon.
CDR copy?
CDR copies.
The last exchange there was to let the crew know that as part of the shuttle systems will detect the fact that the pressurization in the crew cabin will be climbing, and the shuttle caution and warning system will eventually sound an alarm, klaxon, which tells you that there's a problem with your pressurization, and a siren to tell you that there's a master alarm. And they're just giving the crew a courtesy call to tell them to expect this, so they don't think that it's something unexpected.
OTC CDR, we did receive a cabin atmosphere master alarm. We punched it off.
Copy that.
Well, there you're going to leave us at this point, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the flight deck, helping the crew into their seats on this next mission in August or early September. So we thank you very much. It's been very informative.
Thank you, George. It's been great being here, and I'm looking forward to being on the other side of the camera myself.
CCSE and RCRT OTC on 212.
CCSE going to 232.
If you can go to 232 for S-band to high power. CGNC OTC 212.
Go ahead.
Have you given us step 693 yet? That's still on work.
Can you give you that at this time?
Copy. CCME OTC 212.
CCME, go ahead.
Perform RF SEP source verification. You need to go to channel 128.
I copy.
You see, we want someone over there also.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 55 minutes, 17 seconds and counting. Our latest projection of the launch time is essentially unchanged. It appears to be 6:11 and 10 seconds, and the window would be 5 minutes 4 seconds in duration. There'll be a final look at this in the built-in hold at T-minus 9. But it appears that that's unlikely to change. So that would make our built-in hold at T-minus 9 minutes come out to 42 minutes and 29 seconds. And that's actually being fed into the ground launch sequencer right now. No discussion on any of the communications channels here in the firing room at the moment, so all things are going well, and we continue to target an on-time liftoff. Weather continues to be acceptable both at KSC and at the overseas landing sites. At T-minus 52 minutes, 56 seconds and counting, this is shuttle launch control.
CLS OTC 212. GLS OTC on 212.
GLS, go.
Perform GLS mainline activation for the clock. Step 766.
Copy for the clock. OTC CL212.
Go ahead, Easton.
Okay, we just want to let the crew know they're getting ready to remove the probe so they will go to Claxton. Or they possibly might go to Claxton.
Crew copies.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 49 minutes, 18 seconds and counting. The terminal countdown range safety closed loop test is underway at this time. This test verifies the paths that the destruct signal would travel and that the shuttle's range safety receiver responds correctly to the commands that are sent. This is also a health check of the range safety signal. Console operators in the Range Operations Control Center on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station will also get verification that the orbiter has received the signals. Inhibits have been placed in the system to prevent any inadvertent firing. The actual range safety systems are located on the solid rocket boosters.
Copy.
And we're completing the switching of the Mila tracking station antennas from their low power to higher power modes at this point in the count. We've just had a discussion about the photo optic control system. The controllability of that system has been a problem this morning, and we have confirmation now that it is in a configuration that will be acceptable to support the launch.
And DPS, OTC. DPS, you got to go for 778. Copy and work.
And it's time now for the launch weather officer to brief Launch Director Dave King. That briefing should be coming up in a couple of minutes.
OTC DPS. Go ahead, DPS. DPS launch countdown sequence activation complete. Step 783. Copy.
OTC GLS.
Go ahead.
GLS mainline activation is complete. Step 766 through 772. NAPA form on 769.
Copy.
OTC CL212.
Go ahead.
Initial crew module pressurization leak check is complete at 773, and we're ready for the cabin vent redundancy.
Copy that. CDRTC, perform cabin vent redundancy configuration.
That's the work, CDR. OTC CDR, the cabin vent redundancy config is complete.
Copy, ECL.
I copy.
OTC, OVCC.
Go ahead, OVCC.
Yes, ma'am, the hatch is closed and latched. I'd like to start my preps for breaking down the white room.
You got to go. Step 803.
Copy.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 39 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. Personnel will now begin leaving the White Room at Launch Pad 39A now that their activities are complete. Astronaut Charlie Precourt, flying the weather aircraft, reports just a very few scattered clouds around 3,000 feet to the north and south of the pad. Nothing really around the pad area itself. Confirmation now that the Range Safety Command carrier is up and supporting.
RTC CL212. Go ahead. Tower cabin vent redundancy is complete at 786. So at 787, our DPDT is 0. And we're ready for 788.
Copy. CHED OTC on 212.
Alright.
We'll give you step 788.
Copy that.
And CDR claxons may occur in the next step due to high cabin decay rate, and CDR open cabin vent ISO valve.
Cover that, and cabin vent ISO valve coming open. The cabin vent ISO is open, top back open with the klaxon punched off.
Copy. ECL?
Yeah, I can verify 791.
NECL, you got to go for 794.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 36 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. The solid rocket booster retrieval ships, Liberty and Freedom, are standing by now in the Atlantic Ocean and are doing a surveillance of the area, looking for any other boats or things which would be in the launch impact area, doing that surveillance visually and by radar. And they're also relaying sea conditions and weather reports back to Shuttle Weather Officer Ed Perselic. The booster retrieval ships are expected back into Port Canaveral about 6 o'clock on Saturday night. After the Space Shuttle Atlantis lifts off, it will go transonic at about 1 minute into the flight. The solid rocket booster separation will occur at 2 minutes and 3 seconds after launch. Then the orbital maneuvering system will begin firing for 59 seconds to add additional thrust to Atlantis' three main engines. The main engine cutoff will occur at 8 minutes 30 seconds into flight, and the external tank will be jettisoned 20 seconds later. At this time, Atlantis will be in a highly elliptical orbit of approximately 195 by 45 statute miles. Then there will be a final 2-minute burn of the orbital maneuvering system about 40 minutes into the flight to raise the perigee, or lowest point of the orbit, and Atlantis then will be closer to its circular orbit as it travels around the Earth at about 218.5 by 220 statute miles.
CDR, perform pass, DFS, transfer prep.
CDR, copies, that doesn't work.
And also, as a matter of interest, flying aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis is the Olympic torch to be used at the Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia this September. And also flying in Atlantis is the official Olympic flag.
Go ahead, DLS. Step 801 and 802 are complete with a not perform on sub-step 1 of 802.
Copy, and 784 was completed.
784, that's affirmative, that's complete.
Copy.
OTC CDR, pass BFS, transfer prep complete.
Copy. CDR, perform the Almas GN2 press.
That doesn't work. OTC CDR, OMS GN2 press complete.
Copy. DLT, perform water spray boiler GN2 supply activation.
BLT, we'll go. Boiler into GN2 supply activation is complete.
Copy.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 30 minutes and counting. The solid rocket booster recovery ships have just radioed in the weather from 160 miles northeast of Cape Canaveral off the coast of Jacksonville. The winds are south-southeast at 5 knots. Seas are 1 to 3 feet. The water temperature is 69 degrees. Air temperature is 77 with a visibility of 12 miles. And just 10% cloud coverage. So they will have excellent conditions for recovery of the solid rocket boosters later this morning.
OVCC.
Go ahead, OVCC.
Yes, ma'am. White room secure for orbiter up, support set of 20. All personnel clearing back to the roadblock. Flight crew rescue locker equipment replaced. Locker secure. Slide wire baskets are in position. All closeout crew tools are accounted for.
Okay, and stand by just one.
Standing by.
Atlantis, Houston, for the entire crew, comm check.
CDR, loud and clear. CLTs, loud and clear.
MS1, loud and clear.
MS2, loud and clear. MS3, loud and clear.
MS4, loud and clear.
MS5, loud and clear.
Atlantis, we read you all loud and clear. On page 1-10, your new KSC altimeter setting is 30.21.
KSC altimeter 3021.
Good readback, Jim. Your next update is on flipbook page 2-4.
We're with you on 2-4.
Press to ATO 10.0. Single engine Ops 3 Zaragoza 12.2. Press to MECO 14.0. Single engine press 17.3. And negative bin 18.0.
Copy, press ATO at 10.0. Single engine Ops 3 Zaragoza at 12.2. Press to MECO at 14.0. Single engine press at 17.3. Negative bin at 18.0.
Good readback. Your next update is on flipbook page 2-5.
And we're there.
Check PC to 72% will be 0.76 Mach. Check PC to 104% will be 1.07 Mach.
Copy, throttle back at 0.76, throttle up at 1.07.
Good readback, Atlantis. Your next update is over on flipbook page 2-6.
We're ready.
The bottom of the page, your planar window 1, nominal ohms 2, HD, is 91.2. Planar window 1, no comm, ohms 2, HP, is 8.5. Planar window 2 is NA.
Planar window 1, nominal ohms 2 HT, 91.2. No comm ohms 2 HP, 85. Planar window 2, NA.
Good readback. Your next update is on page 8-6 of the ascent checklist.
8-6.
Jim, your max rates in first stage, roll 2 degrees per second at 60 seconds. Pitch 1 degree per second at 70 seconds. Yaw will be 1 degree per second. Your trajectory lofting in second stage is none.
Copy, roll 2 degrees per second at 60 seconds. Pitch 1 degree per second. Yaw 1 degree per second. Trajectory lofting is done.
Good read back, Atlantis. This completes your ascent checklist updates.
Roger that.
RTC CL212.
Go ahead, ECL.
Our cabin vent is completely ready for the cabin pressure reading. And for step 850, our cabin pressure is 14.82.
Copy, 14.82.
OTC PD.
Okay.
We are complete steps 833 through 836.
Copy.
OTC GLS.
Go ahead.
Step 838 is complete. That's limit change and dual notification for BRS.
Copy. CDR, CRT3, established BFS SM system summary 1 display. And we're looking for readings.
Okay. OTC CDR on SM System 1. We have a cabin press reading of 14.8. On O1 gauge, we have 15.1.
Copy.
NSCNC on 212 and 232. The countdown clock will hold at T-minus 20 minutes in 1 minute 45 seconds.
And CDR on CRT3, restore the GNC BFS ops display.
CDR, that is complete.
And CDR, close cabin vent valve.
That's in work, CDR. OTC CDR, the closed vent valve steps are complete.
Copy. And PVD, step 861 for the clock.
It worked.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 20 minutes and holding. We've just entered the built-in hold. This is a planned 10-minute built-in hold that will lead us down to T-minus 9 minutes for a final 42-minute 29-second built-in hold.
And all systems is OTC. Verify your software programs are activated. Report only if any discrepancies.
Shuttle Weather Officer Ed Priscillik has completed briefing. Launch Director Dave King. The weather officer reports that
DRPS OTC on 212.
most of the low clouds have dissipated. There's just a few high cirrus clouds, and there are essentially no issues or concerns. Spaceflight Meteorology Group from Houston reports that at least 2 of the 3 TAL sites overseas are currently observed and forecast for go. We're setting up for Zaragoza as our primary TAL site, Zaragoza in Spain.
OTC CPVD.
PVD.
Can give you 863.
And again, we're targeting 6:11 as our launch time this morning based on the latest position of the orbiting International Space Station. With 7 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in this planned 10-minute built-in hold at T-minus 20 minutes and holding, this is Shuttle Launch Control.
Yes, sir. We'll give you step 874 at this time.
Copy that. I can verify step 874 complete.
Copy.
FCO, NTD on 212 for com check. How do you read?
And NTD, this FCO. Read you loud and clear, Abby.
Got you loud and clear, FCO. CHTD, CGSS, JBFX, and JHTD. Verify active on 212 and monitor channel 232 for the remainder of the count. HTD. HTD verifies. CGSS.
CGSS verifies.
JBFX.
JBFX verifies.
And JHTD. JHTD verifies.
And DPS OTC, I'll give you 935 at this time. DPS copies. CTSS OTC.
Go ahead.
Step 944.
Ready? And attention all stations on channels 212 and 232. This is the NTD conducting the T-minus 20-minute briefing. The launch window and LOX drainback hold times have not been finalized as of yet. Updated launch times will be provided to the team during the T-minus 9-minute hold. The NTD will manage the countdown timelines and will hold the countdown if there is a launch window or launch time constraint violation. TLT, at T-minus 5 minutes, perform APU start upon command of OTC only.
TLT, will go.
CDR, the pad egress system is nominal. The evacuation helipad is 2.
Copy, helipad 2.
And that's a good copy. Control room launch team, disable telephone ringers at this time. Control room access will be restricted after resuming the count at T-minus 20 minutes until after launch or flight crew egress. All personnel not active in terminal count will monitor OIS channel 217. After T-minus 20 minutes, all problems or trends that require a countdown clock hold will be reported to the NTD on channel 212, together with a recommendation. For all manual holds after T-minus 5 minutes, the countdown clock will continue until T-minus 31 seconds, unless the recommendation to hold at the next milestone is necessary. At T-minus 9 minutes, when a go is given, it indicates that the reporting element is free of problems which could prevent a successful launch. If a hold command is requested and issued between T-minus 9 minutes and T-minus 31 seconds, the countdown clock will be restarted upon successful resolution of the problem without a go survey made of all elements. After T-minus 31 seconds, only cutoff is available and will result in a recycle to T-minus 20 minutes. For a cutoff, code word CGLF give cutoff will be used, and the GLS hold milestones are listed in substep 10. That concludes the T-minus 20-minute briefing. Are there any questions? Countdown clock will resume at T-minus 20 in 3 minutes and 30 seconds mark.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 20 minutes and holding. All launch team members have switched to the same communications channel here in the firing room, and the same channel that the astronauts are monitoring from the flight deck of Atlantis. NASA Test Director Steve Aldemus has just completed the briefing to the launch team, the L-minus 20-minute briefing.
Not perform on 898.
Copy.
Space Shuttle Atlantis, as we see it there on the launch pad, weighs 4,519,492 pounds.
CGLS entity on 212.
GLS go.
Verifier countdown clock is set to resume at 0907.
That's affirmative, 090700 GMT.
Copy.
Atlantis by itself weighs 262,565 pounds, and that's just 5.8% of the weight of the entire shuttle stack as we see it on the pad. And after Atlantis comes home, having offloaded a lot of supplies and other equipment to the orbiting space station, it will touch down with a weight of 224,504 pounds. "90 seconds away from picking up the countdown.
Attention all console operators, discontinue all LDB commands and reads during pass ops transition. And attention all stations on 212, the countdown clock will resume at 0907 GMT.
Standing by to pick up the countdown in 15 seconds. 10 seconds.
Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 20 minutes and counting. Houston flight entity on 212.
NTD Houston flight.
Yes, sir. Will the flight crew weather briefing be required today?
No, sir. Weather looks good today.
Copy.
We're transitioning now to the Ops 1 program. That's the primary computer program that Atlantis will be using during its ascent. For further information on STS 101 on the World Wide Web, go to spaceflight.nasa.gov.
OTC DPS. Go. Pass Ops transition complete. DPS ready for BFS transition to Ops 101, step 951. Copy. CDR, clear pass fault sum and take BFS to Ops 1.
CDR, that's some work.
Entity safety 212. Solid safety. Can I give you steps 987, and with that also give you 988. I copy that. STM entity on 212. Go ahead. Terminate video tracking and recording of the closeout crew. Copy 989. And 990, deactivate pad OISD. Copy that. And also entity, while I got you, 949 not performed. That's correct. And never got 908. SRO entity on 212. SRO. KFC area is clear for launch. Copy.
CDR, verify BFS Ops 1 transition complete.
Almost finished. Stand by. OTC CDR, the BFS Ops 1 is complete. No unexpected errors.
Copy. And PLT, configure pass and BFS horizontal situation displays.
Well configure.
And CDR, configure contingency abort yaw steer.
That's some work, CDR.
NTD CBFS. CBFS, go ahead. Yeah, step 966, ready for BFS uplink. I copy that. Houston flight entity.
NTD Houston flight.
Perform BFS pre-flight uplink load per step 967.
Flight copies, we'll put it in work.
OTC CDR, the config contingency aboard yaw steering is complete.
Copy. NSS OTC, you got to go for step 975.
Copy. OTC SSS.
Go ahead.
Step 9A complete, cross use configured for flight.
Okay.
Horizontal sit config is complete.
Copy PLT. And PLT, perform MPS helium reconfiguration.
Wilco.
High copy and CVFS entity. CVFS copies. 968.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 11 minutes, 55 seconds and counting.
T-minus 9 minutes.
The louvered doors on the vehicle assembly building now being closed as a precautionary measure. This usually occurs about an hour before launch. And we're about 2.5 minutes away from entering the final hold in today's countdown. And again, no issues in work at this time. Weather is go at Kennedy Space Center and at all our emergency overseas sites.
All systems discontinue all non-mandatory LDB traffic for remainder of count.
Standing by now to go into the T-minus 9-minute built-in hold in 7 seconds. 3 seconds. T-minus 9 minutes and holding.
T-minus 9 minutes and holding.
This will be a 44-minute hold. And that hold based on the actual planned launch time for Atlantis, which is 6:11 a.m. And that is predicated on the position of the orbiting International Space Station, which at the time of launch will be over Turkey, northeast of Ankara, near the Black Sea.
CVFS, go ahead.
Okay, step 1011, T-minus 20 minutes, GPC dump is complete.
Copy, an OTC, step 1011.
OTC copy.
Houston flight entity on 212.
Indeed, Houston flight 212.
Okay, we're ready with the final launch window determination whenever you have that.
Okay, Steve, not much change. The window close stays at 10, 16, 14. And we have a 1-second update to drain back hold time. For preferred, it's 3:27. For window open, it is 4:16.
Okay, and we will select preferred time, and I show a preferred launch time of 10:11:18. I'm sorry, check that. 10:11:10.
That's a good copy.
Okay.
And we're standing by now for Payload Director Tip Talone to do the poll of his payload team.
Scott, the DPO poll complete?
Yes, it is, sir, and the payload team is ready to go.
All right, thank you. Space Ed, Dale.
Space Ed's go.
Thanks, Dale. Launch package rep. Mike.
We're go.
Thanks, Mike. Lots of good work, folks. Let's go have a good flight. Thank you.
And we'll go now to the Johnson Space Center in Houston to launch commentator Eileen Hawley for a readiness of mission control and Houston flight to support today's launch and the upcoming mission of STS-101.
Good morning, and thank you, George. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, this is Mission Control, Houston. The ascent team of flight controllers is on duty here in Mission Control, ready to assume responsibility for the mission and the crew once Atlantis clears the tower. The team is once again under the direction of the Ascent Flight Director John Shannon, overseeing his 5th shuttle ascent today. He'll be directing the efforts of the 25 or so flight controllers who are working here in Mission Control, using their input to make any required decisions during the dynamic ascent phase this morning. Shannon is joined on console by the Weather Flight Director Kelly Beck. Throughout launch preparations today, she's been coordinating with the Spaceflight Meteorology Group here in Houston to understand weather conditions at the launch site and at the transatlantic landing sites around the world. Handling communication duties with the crew today is astronaut Rick Sturkow. He is joined on console by astronaut Gus Loria, who acts as the weather capcom. Kelly Beck and Gus Loria have been working together to coordinate real-time weather reconnaissance being conducted by Chief Astronaut Charlie Precourt, who's been flying both a T-38 training aircraft and the shuttle training aircraft at the launch site today. Weather conditions in Florida and at the transatlantic landing sites are not expected to pose any challenge to today's scheduled liftoff at 5:11 a.m. Central Time today. Once Atlantis clears the launch tower, flight control teams here at Mission Control will be on station 24 hours a day, working with the crew to ensure the success of the flight. The flight dynamics officers, or FIDOs as they're called, will be making the precise calculations required to bring Atlantis to its scheduled rendezvous with the International Space Station. The flight activities officer will plan and watch over the crew's work, and many other flight controllers here in the flight control room will be monitoring a wide variety of shuttle systems, including life support, power generation, onboard computers, and communications equipment. Just down the hall from the shuttle flight control room, International Space Station Flight Director Paul Hill and his team of flight controllers are on duty watching over the station. Space Station flight controllers routinely staff that control room monitoring the station, and throughout the STS-101 mission, they'll be working with both the crew and the shuttle flight control team to accomplish the goals of the mission. Hill and his lead electrical systems flight controller, Dave Crook, have made 2 trips to Moscow as part of their preparation for overseeing some of the onboard maintenance work that will be completed during this flight. And now, with both the ascent team of flight controllers and the Space Station control room ready to support the launch of Atlantis to the International Space Station, we return to George Diller at the Kennedy Space Center for a continuing look at launch preparations.
Now, the window still opens at 10:09:29.
Our launch window for today will now open at 10:11:10.
And we have a 44-minute built-in hold.
0:16:14, so we got about a 5-minute window.
5-minute and 4-second window. Houston, flight entity on 212.
And Launch Director Dave King about to pull his team.
NTD Houston Flight 212.
Okay, John, will the G1 launch target or Polly's updates be required today?
NTD, we have no more updates to the BFS.
Okay, I copy.
OTC GLS.
Right, GLS.
D16/03 is complete. That's step 16, 1019 Alpha and Bravo. The fill-in for 1019 Bravo is -455.
Copy.
This is Shuttle Launch Control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. We have now 35 minutes remaining in this planned built-in hold. And this will be largely waiting this one out. There are no issues under discussion.
NTD Houston Flight.
One final ascent data crew update required today?
No, sir, we don't have anything else for the crew.
Okay, copy.
Everybody's getting ready for their final polls here in the firing room, and a little informal discussion among everyone in advance as to whether or not there are any issues or concerns. Dave King talking to our payload director, Tip Talone, and other members on the senior tier of consoles that essentially will make the final decision on a launch today. And right now, no one has any reasons that we can think of that would preclude us from an on-time launch.
This is SD, go ahead. Okay, I still show one constraint, fuel cell number 3 IPR to the T-minus 9-minute resume. Do we have a story there? Yeah, we should be clearing that off the consent list. We'll put that in work. Okay. ECL, EPD, and C-Power. Fire-X pumps will be started momentarily. ECL.
Copy.
EPD. EPD copies. C-Power. Copy. STM entity. Go ahead. Sequence 16, step 1030B. Bring up primary P1 pump to operational pressure with secondary P1 as backup. Copy that. Entity STM. Go ahead, STM. 1030, Charlie. High copy Fire-X pump P1 has been started. CECL, did you copy?
ECL copy.
EPD. EPD copies. And C-Power. C-Power copies.
Atlantis will be delivering more than a ton of supplies to the International Space Station, and the maintenance task will include replacing up to 4 new batteries and associated electronics in the Russian Zarya control module. There'll be a 6.5-hour spacewalk. The Russian Strela cargo boom, which will assist in further station assembly, will be installed on the outside of Zarya, and a radio antenna on Unity will be replaced. Among the items in the equipment that the Atlantis is taking up, it includes personal clothing and hygiene gear, medical and exercise equipment, computer equipment and printers, and some hardware for the space station's KU band communication system. And a centerline camera for Unity's common berthing mechanisms, to which the other station components will be attached. And meanwhile, the Zvezda service module remains on schedule for a launch in July, setting the stage for the next launch of Space Shuttle Atlantis once again in August or early September. The service module will serve as the early living quarters and lab space for the first long-duration crews to reside on the station beginning later in the fall. This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 9 minutes and holding, with 22 minutes remaining in this planned built-in hold. Astronaut Charlie Precourt continuing to make approaches to the shuttle landing facility and the shuttle training aircraft to assess the handling conditions for the shuttle should there be a return to launch site. He's currently setting up for an approach to runway 15. Flight director out in Houston polling his team for their readiness to pick up the count. The chairman of the mission management team is now polling his mission management team for their readiness.
CHCD OTC 212.
Fine.
Can you verify step 1060 at this time?
1060 is good.
Bill Gerstenmaier, chairman of the mission management team, completed his polls of his team. They are all go. The flight director's completed his polls, and they are go in Houston. Launch director's polls upcoming. The International Space Station is about to go overhead the Kennedy Space Center. There will be a pass between 5:46 and 5:53 a.m. this morning at about 30 degrees above the horizon, moving from south-southeast to north-northeast. So that's beginning in about a minute. It should be about its highest point, 30 degrees above the horizon at about 550.
ISL JRPS in Houston flight. Perform Ops 2 recorder activation on channel 145. ISL. ISL copies. JRPS.
JRPS copy.
Houston flight.
Flight copies.
A report from the Spaceflight Meteorology Group that all 3 TAL sites overseas are go. We're setting up for Zaragoza. And return to lost site weather is go. $14 minutes remaining in the planned built-in hold.
MTD ISL. ISL, this MTD, go ahead. Yes, sir, step 1046, Ops 2 recorder is activated. MTD copies.
OTC PLT request permission to pump up suits, please.
Yes, sir, you have a go.
Thank you very much.
CLT, clear caution and warning memory, and verify no unexpected errors.
CLT, no unexpected errors, and I will clear. And the hardware caution and warning is clear.
Copy. CDR, configure CRTs for ascent.
The CDR doesn't work. Yeah.
The eastern range is working a problem with a couple of radars. However, at this time, as far as what we need for launch, we are still green, and the range is working to get those supporting radars back in service. So we are still go.
MS2, panel 019, TV power switch on.
MS2, welcome. OTC, MS2, the TV power is on.
Copy.
We can just see the first rays of sun coming up from the east of Pad A. This will still technically be considered a nighttime launch. It does not become a daytime launch until we are within 15 minutes of sunrise, which occurs at about 6:30. Five minutes now remaining in the built-in hold.
On 212, this is the MTD, performing a launch status check. Verify ready to resume the count. Say go, no go for launch. OTC.
OTC go.
TBC.
Tank boosters are go.
PTC.
Payloads, let's go.
LPS.
LPS is go.
Houston flight.
Flight is go.
Mila.
Milo's go for launch.
STM.
STM's go.
Safety console. Search console, go. STE.
STS, go.
LRD.
LRD is go.
SRO.
SRO is go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR.
Atlantis is go.
Copy CDR. Launch director, NTD.
Go ahead, NTD.
Your launch team is ready to proceed.
Okay, copy, and I'll conduct my poll at this time. Verify go for launch or no go. Chief Engineer.
Engineer is go, Dave.
Okay. KSC Director of Safety and Mission Assurance.
Estimate is go.
Okay. International Space Station and Payload Processing.
Payloads are go, Dave.
And range weather.
Roger, sir. We have no constraints to launch.
Okay. And Ops Manager.
You're go to proceed with the countdown.
Okay, thanks. And CDR Launch Director on 212.
Go for the CDI.
Yeah, Jim and crew, looks like we're ready to send you on your way to the International Space Station. We wish you well.
Thank you very much, sir. We're ready.
Okay, and NTD Launch Director, you have a go to pick up the count on your mark.
All right, copy that. Thank you, launch director. And the countdown clock will resume at T-minus 9 minutes. In 3 minutes and 20 seconds, mark. Countdown clock will resume in 2 minutes. Mark.
All the range radars are now back up. The International Space Station at the time of docking with Atlantis will be at an altitude of...
The countdown clock will resume at T-minus 9 minutes in 1 minute. Mark.
The space station will be an altitude of 209 by 203 statute miles. And after the reboost, the station will be at 237.5 by 227 statute miles. Standing by to pick up the count in 5 seconds.
3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
CLS auto sequence has been initiated.
And the computers here in the firing room, the ground launch sequencer is now controlling the countdown. There will be over 1,000 parameters checked by the ground launch sequencer between now and T-minus 31 seconds. And at T-minus 31, the ground launch sequencer will hand off to Space Shuttle Atlantis' onboard computers. Latest balloon data shows that everything aloft is good.
TLT, connect essential buses to fuel cells.
Connecting the essential buses. Okay, buses are connected.
So after Atlantis reboosts the space station, it will have increased its orbit by approximately 25 miles.
TLS's go for OAA retract.
Retracting the orbiter access arm, it can be put back into position in less than a minute if necessary.
RPS, start APU strip chart recorders.
This RPS, recorders are running.
TLT, perform APU pre-start.
APU pre-start's in work.
And the next milestone will be starting the auxiliary power units at T-minus 5 minutes. The pilot will flip three switches in the cockpit.
APU pre-start's complete. 3 gray talkbacks.
Copy.
T-minus 5 minutes.
TLS's go for orbiter APU start.
TLT, perform APU start.
Starting APUs.
CDR, reconfigure heaters.
CDR, that's in work.
Terminating liquid oxygen replenishment at this time.
Three APUs are up and running.
Copy.
OTC CDR, the heater reconfig is complete.
Copy.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
TLS's go for purge sequence 4.
Going through the orbiter's aerosurface profile test. Checking the rudders, speed brake. Main engine gimbal check. The steering check on the 3 main engines. Steering check, complete and good. Minus 3 minutes and count. Start pressurization of the liquid oxygen tank.
Pressurization.
Preparations now to retract the gaseous oxygen vent harm.
PLT, clear caution warning memory. Verify no unexpected errors.
We have no unexpected errors, clearing the caution warning.
And the beanie cap now being retracted.
Caution warning is clear.
Topping off of the fuel cells has been terminated.
Close and lock your visors and initiate OT flow. Best wishes on your mission to service the International Space Station.
Copy that. We're on our way to the station, and we'd like to say thanks to everybody who has made Atlantis and us ready for launch. See you in about a week and a half.
CLSs go for LH2 pressurization.
One minute, 30 seconds.
Sound suppression water system now being armed. T-minus 1 minute and counting. Solid rocket booster joint heaters now being turned on. And the solid rocket booster flight data recorders are activated. Final check of the solid rocket booster steering commands now underway. T-minus 31 seconds. The handoff to Atlantis' computers has occurred.
25 seconds. 20 seconds. 15 seconds. 10 seconds.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis, a space shuttle for the 21st century.
Houston is now controlling the flight of Atlantis.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
The roll maneuver is complete. Atlantis is now in a heads down, wings level position, headed toward a rendezvous with the International Space Station. Seconds into the flight, Atlantis' engines are now throttling down to 72% of rated thrust as the orbiter passes through the area of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Atlantis currently at an altitude of 3.6 miles, about 2.5 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. All systems on board are performing well.
Atlantis, go at throttle up.
Copy, go and throttle up.
Atlantis' 3 liquid-fueled engines are now back at full throttle, 104% of rated thrust. Atlantis now at an altitude of 9 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center at 6 miles. Atlantis traveling now at a speed of about 1,600 miles per hour at an altitude of 14 miles and downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 10.5 miles. All systems on board are continuing to perform well. One minute and 48 seconds into the flight. Atlantis now downrange from the Kennedy Space Center 22 miles at an altitude of 24 miles. The next major event will be the burnout and separation of the twin solid rocket boosters. And booster officer confirms good separation of the two solid rocket boosters. Atlantis now at an altitude of 34 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 42 miles, 2 minutes and 25 seconds into powered flight.
Atlantis, 2-engine TAL.
Copy, 2-engine TAL.
With that call, in the event of a single engine failure, Atlantis could now reach the transatlantic landing site at Zaragoza. Telemetry continuing to indicate that all 3 engines are performing as expected. All systems on board continuing to perform well. 2 minutes and 50 seconds into the flight, Atlantis now downrange from the Kennedy Space Center 69 miles, traveling at a speed of 3,600 miles per hour. Three minutes and 20 seconds into powered flight, Atlantis continuing to perform well. 3 main engines, the auxiliary power units, and fuel cells all performing as expected. Atlantis now traveling at a speed of 4,300 miles per hour at an altitude of about 56 miles. Downrange from the launch site now at about 115 miles.
Atlantis, negative return. No action on the left dome's tank P message.
Negative return, no action.
Atlantis is now too far downrange and has gained too much altitude to return to the Kennedy Space Center in the event of an engine failure. However, all systems on board are continuing to perform extremely well. Atlantis now downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 174 miles, traveling at a speed of 5,500 miles per hour. And just about 4 minutes of powered flight remaining, 4 minutes and 29 seconds into the flight of Atlantis.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
Copy, press ATO.
4 minutes, 55 seconds into the flight, Atlantis could now reach orbit on 2 engines should one fail. Again, all 3 engines are continuing to perform as expected. Atlantis now traveling at a speed of 6,700 miles per hour. Just about 3 minutes of powered flight remaining. Again, all systems on board Atlantis are continuing to perform extremely well. Atlantis now downrange from the Kennedy Space Center at a distance of 281 miles.
Atlantis, single engine, Ops 3, Zaragoza.
Single engine, Ops 3, Zaragoza.
Atlantis, single engine, Zaragoza, 104, press to MECO.
Single engine, Zaragoza 104 and press to MECO.
With those calls, Atlantis could now reach a safe orbit On 2 engines, should one fail, again, all engines continuing to perform very well. Atlantis is also now rolling into a heads-up position to provide communication through the TDRS satellite network. Atlantis now traveling at a speed of 9,800 miles per hour. 6.5 minutes into the flight of Atlantis, about 2 minutes of powered flight remaining.
Atlantis, single engine press, 104.
Single engine press, 104.
Atlantis could now reach orbit on 1 engine should 2 fail. Again, all 3 engines continuing to perform as expected. Atlantis now traveling at a speed of 12,000 miles per hour. Downrange from the launch site, just about 581 miles. About 1 minute of powered flight remaining prior to main engine cutoff. Atlantis' engines are now beginning to throttle back to maintain structural limits on the orbiter as it approaches loads near 3 times normal gravity. And main engine cutoff is confirmed, Atlantis says.
Atlantis, nominal MECO, ohms 1 not required.
Copy that. We hear it says go for the plus X.
Atlantis, we concur.
And Atlantis now in orbit following 8.5 minutes of powered flight. The flight control team here in Houston confirming main engine cutoff and confirming also the separation of the external fuel tank. Atlantis initially is in an elliptical orbit with a high point of just about 322 miles, a low point just about 200 miles.
N2 reg dropped just below limit during the purge after the ohms assist. We're evaluating and we'll have further words.
Okay, thanks a lot.
"11 minutes into the flight of Atlantis. Atlantis now in a safe orbit as expected following a very uneventful climb to orbit today by the crew on board. The ascent team of flight controllers here in Mission Control continuing to look at data and provide the Ascent Flight Director, John Shannon, with information about performance of Atlantis during its 8.5-minute climb to orbit today. And with Atlantis in a safe orbit following its very successful and uneventful climb to orbit today, we'll be returning to the Kennedy Space Center for a look at some of the engineering replays of this morning's launch. Those engineering replays will begin momentarily.
Atlantis, Houston, dock, you are go for APU hydraulic shutdown per the ascent checklist.
Copy, go for the APU hydraulic shutdown. Houston, we're ready to pitch up for the ET photo maneuver if you concur.
Copy, Atlantis, so we're watching you.
Houston, APU hydraulic shutdown is complete.
Copy, Atlantis, thank you. Atlantis, we will be unable to speak to you for about a minute due to spreading.
Copy that. Thank you, Atlantis. We show the config. We're down to Ops 105.
Atlantis, we had some comm dropouts. Doc, say again.
Just catching up on the checklist, CJ. We're done with everything down to the major mode change.
Copy, Atlantis, we're ready for that.
Houston, Atlantis, I'll be ready for MPS power down on your call.
Copy, Doc. Booster's watching you. We will burn the onboard targets for OHMS 2. TIG MET 43 minutes, 04 seconds.
Okay, copy. OHMS 2, burn the onboard targets with a TIG of 43.04.
It's a good readback, Jim.
And Houston, I've started MPS GH2 inerting.
Copy, Atlantis.
Houston, Atlantis, Max is ready. I'll do the doors.
Copy, Atlantis. Max is watching.
and last. Doors closed and latched.
Copy and concur, Atlantis. Thank you.
Houston for pointing. We've completed pictures of the ET, and we're ready to maneuver to the burn attitude if you're ready for that now.
Copy, Atlantis. We're ready for the maneuver.
Here we go.
This is Mission Control Houston, 28 minutes into the flight of Atlantis on STS 101. The crew is safely in orbit and in the process now of configuring Atlantis to support their on-orbit operations. In just about 15 minutes from now, they will perform an orbital maneuvering system engine burn to circularize Atlantis' orbit. Then they will also begin the process of setting up Atlantis to support the activities for their 10-day mission, preparing to open the cargo bay doors, activating the Space Hab module, which is in the rear of the cargo bay, and in general, turning Atlantis from a launch vehicle into an on-orbit operations platform. Activities here in the flight control room continue as the flight controllers are watching over the crew and the shuttle. The next activity scheduled here on NASA TV in just about 20 minutes will be today's post-launch press conference originating from the Kennedy Space Center. That's scheduled at the top of the hour, 6 a.m. Central Time. Participants will be Bill Gerstenmaier, the Space Shuttle Programs Manager for Launch Integration, and Dave King, the Launch Director. And again, that post-launch news conference from the Kennedy Space Center is at 6 a.m. Central Time. In the meantime, here in the flight control room and down the hall in the International Space Station flight control room, activities going very smoothly following an on-time and flawless launch of Atlantis, headed now toward its rendezvous with the International Space Station. We're just 29 minutes and 35 seconds into the flight of Atlantis. This is Mission Control Houston.
For the contract.
Atlantis, we read you loud and clear. How many?
CJ, got you loud and clear. I just turned off the air-to-air up here because we're getting so much noise over the UHF static.
Copy, Doc. Thank you.
Contact on the handheld.
Atlantis, we read you loud and cleared on handheld microphone.
You're loud and clear also.
Atlantis, Houston, we're about a minute and a half to hand over to Tidris Z. Prop has pulled the data from your ohms assist, and it was just what we told you. At the purge, the N2 reg dropped slightly below FDA limits. We have no concerns for ohms 2.
Copy that. 2 engine ohms 2. Thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston, just about 35 minutes into the flight of Atlantis on the STS-101 mission to the International Space Station. Again, this morning's liftoff was a flawless liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center, occurring on time this morning at 5:11 a.m. Central Time. The crew is now in the process of configuring Atlantis to support 10 days of activity. The crew was launched at a precise time to put it on course for a rendezvous and docking with the International Space Station. That docking is expected to take place late Saturday night at 11:32 p.m. Central Time on Saturday night. Over the course of the mission, the astronauts will be docked to the International Space Station. They will spend time refurbishing and replacing components in both the Zarya and Unity modules. In addition, 2 of the astronauts will be performing a 6.5-hour spacewalk. Jeff Williams and Jim Voss are scheduled to perform that spacewalk, which would begin just about 9:30 p.m. on Sunday. That's 9:30 p.m. Central Time. In just about 7 minutes, the crew is scheduled to fire the orbital maneuvering system engines on board, that in a burn that will circularize Atlantis's orbit. Again, all systems on board are continuing to perform well. The crew launched late in its day. They will actually be going to sleep relatively soon, relatively quickly after their launch today. Again, that launch taking place in the latter part of the crew's day. It will be a busy time for the crew members on board right now. However, just in the processes of configuring Atlantis to take it from its status as a launch vehicle to an on-orbit platform to help the crew as they plan to rendezvous and dock with the International Space Station and perform a series of maintenance and refurbishment tasks on board. Coming up at the top of the hour at 6 a.m. Central Time will be the post-launch press conference from the Kennedy Space Center. That at 6 a.m. Central Time with Space Shuttle Program Manager for Launch Integration Bill Gerstenmaier and the Launch Director Dave King. That is our next scheduled event on NASA TV just about 12 minutes from now at 6 a.m. Central Time.
Atlantis, Houston, no action on the SM0 thermal propellant message. We were just getting ready to call you with it. There's a parameter slightly out of limits, which we are monitoring.
We copy that, CJ. Thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're just about 2 minutes away from the scheduled OMS burn, as it's called, a burn of the orbital maneuvering system engines to circularize Atlantis' orbit. Ascent Flight Director John Shannon is polling his team of flight controllers to ensure that everyone here in Mission Control is ready to support that burn.
Atlantis, Houston, we'd like you to check auto and then perform another item 27.
Thank you.
Atlantis, good config for the burn.
Systems on board Atlantis are in a good configuration to support that OMS burn to circularize its orbit. That burn just about 45 seconds from now. And that OMS burn is now in process on board Atlantis. The flight control team reporting a good burn of both engines. Again, this orbital maneuvering system engine burn simply designed to circularize Atlantis' orbit.
Atlantis, Houston, good burn.
Copy, good burn, and we saw the same Alps tank message. We won't do anything unless you say to.
Let's affirm, Doc, it was the N2 purge, which repeated the N2 reg dropped slightly below limits again.
Okay, that's what we saw. Thank you.
And on board Atlantis, the crew members are continuing through the early steps of configuring Atlantis to support 10 days of on-orbit operation. Primarily what the crew is going through right now is climbing out of the seats that they were strapped into for launch. They'll begin reconfiguring the computers on board, doing some preliminary configuration of both the middeck and the aft flight control station. In about 20 minutes or so, the crew will also begin preparations for opening the payload bay doors in anticipation of all of their activities over the course of the next 10 days. Everything so far in the Early moments of Atlantis' flight on mission STS 101 continuing to go very smoothly.
GNC, we'll do the TTC gimbal check if you're watching.
Copy, Jim. GNC's watching.
Thank you.
And upcoming at the top of the hour, just about 4 minutes from now, the post-launch press conference originating from the Kennedy Space Center with Space Shuttle Program Manager for Launch Integration Bill Gerstenmaier and the Launch Director Dave King. That's scheduled at 6 a.m. Central Time, originating from the Kennedy Space Center.
Atlantis, on props ready, I can, boosters ready, I can do the LH2 vacuum and earnings.
Copy, Doc. Boosters watching.
Here it comes.
Everyone, and welcome to our post-launch news conference for Atlantis and STS 101. Here to discuss how the countdown went today is Bill Gerstenmaier, Manager of Launch Integration and Chairman of the Mission Management Team, and Dave King, Space Shuttle Launch Director. And we'll begin first with Bill Gerstenmaier. Bill?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. The vehicle is in unbelievably great shape. Really no anomalies were working. We have a little left dome's GN2 measurement that a regulator appears to be a little slow in its flow rate, but other than that, the vehicle is totally clean. And that's really an amazing thing to me. I was out in Palmdale when we were installing the meds, and if you ever saw the vehicle at that time, it was truly amazing. Every electronics box was taken out of the crew compartment. They were all removed, and we were installing the meds to begin. And I remember walking in the orbiter and looking in there and saying, I don't know if we're ever going to get this thing back together again. And then to get it back together again, have the team do that, put it back together and to get it operating and have it this flawless with this few of problems is really a tribute to the team. And the other thing I'd like to say in terms of team things is the PDU changeout. If you remember that, it seemed like months ago, back on April 4th. That was truly an amazing team effort. If you look at that, it took us about 18 days from the time we identified the problem until we had the problem totally resolved. And that's really phenomenal. That involved engineers from Boeing, engineers from Moog, from Sunstrand, KSC personnel, lift team personnel, crane operators. They did testing for the hydraulic freezing to verify that technique, engineers from Houston, and the team effort was really outstanding. So when I see things like the PDU, I see the orbiter come back together and fly this clean, I'm really, really proud of the shuttle team and the attention to detail that they're taking with the vehicle to give us a quality vehicle. And it's a pleasure to be in the program.
Thanks, Bill. Dave?
Well, they say that good things come to those who wait, and we waited for a while on this one, but the satisfaction is immense. It was awesome to get that mission off today, and what a beautiful time of day to launch. Just a few minutes before sunrise, and the vehicle going into the sunrise on ascent was awesome. I can imagine it must have been even more awesome on board. So we're excited about getting Atlantis launched today. It's been a long time coming. Atlantis has been undergoing a lot of work, as Mr. Gerstenmaier said, and I'm just very proud of this team and the teams in California to put this vehicle back together and had it work so flawlessly. We did have a few issues that we worked through tonight, none of which really ever gave us any concern. Weather was